has your approach to the 50 changed at all with a baby?
Yeah.
This is Climbing Gold. And I hate to ask you because everybody asks me the same question with soloing, but it's like, but everybody wants to know. It's a common question. Like, and I feel like with skiing, the risk assessment calculation is even more complex than with climbing in a lot of ways. So I'm kind of like, have you noticed that more? As a parent now.
Yeah, so when yeah, as a parent, you get that question all the time. And early on, I definitely was like, no, it hasn't changed because it became, for me, a goal way before I had a kid that my number one goal is to come home at the end of the day. And that was because I was losing friends, losing heroes, losing mentors. Like we had a run here in Tahoe where it was just like, there was like 10 deaths within a few years. The most prominent uh, professional athletes in our sport were just kind of sadly dropping like flies. And it was this big awakening within our sport of like, hey, maybe we're not assessing the risks and the dangers as much as we should be. And so it became a goal for me pretty early on. It was like, okay, like your goal is to number one goal is to don't die. And I always tell people, I'm like, it kind of sounds like, yeah, of course your goal is don't die. But like you kind of actually have to think about it because I think as when you're in the mountains or when you're out there doing it or you're a driven professional athlete, you look at like a line or something and you're like, man, it'd be so sick if I could ski down there, backflip off that 60-foot cliff, land in that like chute and ride away. And so you start thinking about that and you're like, that's doable. I can do it. But then all of a sudden you're like, what's the probability of like really dying in this, and you're like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that, or just even thinking about the avalanche conditions, all those things. So it became a goal. And when I had a kid, I was like, yeah, it's not going to change. My goal is to come home at the end of the day. I want to be there for my wife. I want to be there for my family. And I will say though, that it wasn't entirely true. And what I've found is that when the risk is on the margins, when you kind of have that little bit of question, maybe that extra elevation of fear, it's a little harder to push through that because for 20 years, things we do are scary. You're on top and you're like, oh, I'm scared out of my mind. But you find the motivation, you find the confidence, you build off prior experiences in your own head, and you like, all right, I got this. And when it comes to those same situations now with a kid at home, sometimes it's a little bit easier, just like, why? Why would I want to try to push through this? Like, I have a responsibility now to be there for my son and for my family. And so there is.
But then do you wonder, like, could I still push through it if I had to? Because I wonder about this a lot
Mhm.
because there are a lot of things for me where I'm like, I think I could do that if I had a reason to, but I'm like, do I have a reason to? It's like if I
That's
want to be home for bedtime and I want to like, play with my daughter all evening and I'm sort of like, yeah, I could probably do the rad thing if I needed to, but I just don't really feel a need to.
That's you've just absolutely nailed it. And that was actually an experience we had on a mountain last year where things got really gnarly. All three of us on the team, we all had a very close call at one point. We pretty much all almost died once. But before that, we were kind of pushing our way through. And I just kind of all of a sudden felt this like, I don't have a need to get to the top of this mountain. Like, I don't have, like, it's not going to change my life. Like, it's not going to make me a noticeably better person or feel more complete. Like, I know deep within that I can go to the top of that mountain. But, like, honestly, I don't need to. And it was a strangely comforting feeling.
But do you worry though that that's like that's the beginning of middle age, like that's
Hmm.
complacency, like that's because I'm a little like because it's one thing to keep telling yourself like I think I could if I had to, but I just don't want to. But then eventually
Hmm.
you're like, wait, can I? Because if you're not consistently proving to yourself or to others that you can do something, I'm like, can you actually do it?
Yeah, well, and that's what's really hard about it. And I think when, we've wired our identities and who we are in this world and who we are in our own minds very much along this line of continually pushing through that fear, continually moving further and better and doing things harder to break that habit in sacrifice of being there for your family. Because the fact is, like, it it sucks for the kids. It sucks for the community, and it sucks for the family members when they're when their father or their mother dies in the mountains. Like, I've been witness to it around here, and there's no silver lining to it. And yeah, it's hard because you're breaking this pattern that you've built for yourself in your own mind for 20, 30 years, and you're succumbing to this way of like, no, I'm not pushing through because I need to be there for my kid. Does that end your career as a professional athlete? Does that end who you think you are? In many ways, it's like, I think the next great challenge for myself is trying to figure out where is that line and where is that balance moving forward.
What were the rules that you came up with for yourself for the 50 to sort of put guardrails on the project?
Yeah, which number one, first rule is don't die. Second rule is have fun. Third rule is ski the 50. And it was very much, those were the rules, because it was like, ultimately, like, yeah, you need to come home at the end of the day, be there for your family, be there for your community. Number two, have fun, because what the hell are we doing this for? Like, we ain't changing the world. We ain't doing things for the greater good of mankind. Like, these sports we do are inherently selfish in many ways. So I find myself to be like, make sure that it's fun, because if you're just pushing through for glory or pushing through to say I was the first ascent of this or whatever, I don't know, that doesn't do it for me. And then three, though, you do need to have big challenge. Like, I think great challenge in life is what helps you grow, helps you understand who you are, helps motivate and inspire people around you and within our community. So I think those three things are inherently contradictory, but those three things are also like what's very important to me.